My previous employer gave me a reference that cost me 3 job offers. I found out 18 months later, and I found out by accident. I had left the company on good terms, or so I believed. My manager had shaken my hand on my last day. There had been a card, a collection, a leaving lunch in the function room upstairs. Everything that marks a professional departure, done with apparent warmth and genuine goodwill. What I didn't know was that my manager had a habit I would only later come to understand. She kept score. I had, during my 3 years at the company, done several things that I thought were entirely unremarkable. I had raised a concern about a procurement process that I believed wasn't compliant with our own internal policies. I had declined to cover for a colleague's absence without notice on 3 separate occasions, citing my own workload. I had, in my final performance review, given an honest answer when asked whether I had any concerns about the team's culture. None of these things had resulted in any formal consequence. My reviews were good, my leaving was positive. I had no reason to think any of it had registered in a way that mattered. My new job search took longer than I'd expected. I had strong interviews, consistently reached final stages, consistently received positive feedback, and then consistently didn't get the offer. 3 times in 4 months. The feedback was always vague, went with another candidate, stronger field than expected, not quite the right fit. The 4th interview was for a role I particularly wanted. I prepared thoroughly. The interview went well. I was offered the role verbally on a Friday afternoon and told the formal offer would follow the following week, pending references. The following week, the offer was withdrawn. The recruiter said there had been feedback from a reference that had raised some concerns the hiring manager hadn't been able to overlook. I knew immediately who the reference was. I had listed my previous manager because she was my most recent line manager, and omitting her would have raised questions. I had not imagined she would say anything other than the standard factual confirmation. I called the recruiter back and asked what the nature of the concerns had been. She eventually said the reference had described me as someone who could be inflexible in team situations and who had struggled to prioritise effectively under pressure. Neither of those things was true. Neither appeared in any of my written performance reviews. There was no documented basis for either characterisation. I looked up the law. Under UK GDPR, I was entitled to request a copy of any personal data held about me, including references given about me, through a subject access request. A reference is personal data. The person it describes has rights over it. I submitted a subject access request to my previous employer the following morning. I was precise and formal. I asked for all references provided about me by any member of staff, all notes or records relating to those references, and all communications about my employment status or performance that had been shared externally. They had 30 days to respond. They responded in 22. The reference they sent me was 2 paragraphs long. The first paragraph confirmed my dates of employment and job title. Standard, factual, unimpeachable. The second paragraph was where my former manager had departed from the facts. She had written that I had shown a pattern of resistance to team priorities and had at times prioritised personal boundaries over collective responsibilities. She had written that I had occasionally struggled with the demands of a fast-paced environment. She had written, in the final sentence, that she would have reservations about recommending me for a role requiring significant team collaboration. None of this appeared in any of my performance reviews. I had my copies. There was no documented concern, no informal warning, no HR involvement, no contemporaneous record of any kind to support what she had written. I took everything to an employment solicitor. What my former manager had written was a bad faith reference, one that went beyond factual information and into subjective characterisation that was both unsupported and demonstrably inconsistent with the documented record of my employment. I had grounds for a claim. I wanted 3 things: a corrected reference, a formal apology, and compensation for the 3 job offers I had lost. We sent a letter before action. It set out the legal position clearly, attached my performance reviews, and gave 14 days to respond. They settled in 11. The corrected reference was factual and positive. The apology was formal and in writing. The compensation covered 6 months of the salary difference between what I'd been earning when I left and what I eventually accepted. My former manager left the company 8 months later. I got the role. I have been here for 2 years now. My performance reviews are excellent, and there is nobody here who keeps score. Has a reference ever held you back without you knowing? Under UK law, you can request a copy of any reference given about you. Tonight might be a good time to check. And if you want more complete stories with no part 2s that never come, follow the page. New story every day.